A lot of stuff we did in front of green screen, a lot of stuff that we did, okay, imagine that there's this big container floating above your heads. Imagine that you're in a cityscape. I'm really excited to see what Michael's done.
But every time I'd come over, there'd be 15 new shots, and it's like, oh my God, this thing is just growing exponentially. And the different looks, the depth on some of these things, like the car chase, and how we started with nothing. And it was just a pan over the faces of the people in like a studio. And now you got stuff whizzing by, and you've got the reflection on the windshield, and all sorts of stuff going on. And it's like, my God, what you started with, and how easy it seemed to do it for one guy just to do it at home alone.
It's digital life. Digital effect.
That's my digital death.
Digital death, that is.
In Go to Hell, I had a few people lined up to do stuff, and they kind of fell out of it. So stuck with the software, I learned how to do it myself, and managed to not only do the 17 or so shots that I had planned for the script, but then also expand it out to be about 40 shots. A similar thing occurred for Planetfall, where our base minimum number of shots to get the show across was probably 65, 70, and it eventually escalated to 420 separate effect shots, and that's not counting every single shot itself is technically manipulated in post-production to include color, treatment, and so on. Things like animation and things like that were new to me. I had access to a great deal of talented people as I was teaching at a school where animation and visual effects was one of the curriculums. As such, I was able to recruit modelers. I would look over students' shoulders and say, hey, that's pretty sweet. How would you like to stick that in a movie? So Shark Ship was one of those cases. The city was done by a class. The chase scene was largely modeled by a pair of guys that I had in class who then graduated and found themselves volunteering for work. Did some of the animation and compositing myself, and as such we finally ended up with a pretty substantial chunk of work, 420 shots worth of work. I also, when somebody's doing something for free, I find it difficult to say, well, you're doing it wrong. Generally, if they're doing it for free and they're doing it, it's right.
Is this what it looked like before?
Yeah. Probably the best shot in the movie is Brandon's matte painting of this news bar. Coincidentally, it was one of the first things that I captured, and I had done a take on it myself too, a real simple matte painting, but because of the great live action that was shot at the restaurant, mine looked pretty cool. Of course, Brandon's looked even cooler.
Really cool looking. It changes the whole look of the whole thing. You can do anything. If you can imagine it, you can do it. If you have the time.
Tear that ship from the air!
We got a great favor from a fellow by the name of Darren Hines, who works at a local audio production facility, and he hooked us up with a complete sound design and mix, really just for the pleasure of doing it.
When it came time to actually do the post-production on Planetfall, I asked Darren if he would be interested in taking on a science fiction feature to actually do the sound design and mix, and he was more than enthusiastic to do that. Needless to say, in Minneapolis he doesn't get an opportunity to work on a science fiction film very often, which is part of how we have been able to get a lot of the quote-unquote favors that we have is it gives you an opportunity to do stuff that you probably in a lifetime would never get to do, at least around here.
Just kind of almost like a car horn reverbing off into the distance.
I don't know, I get punched in the gut and it sounds like, you know, somebody punching into like a piece of meat. Oh, I love that. It's like, and that's post-production, you know, that's, but it adds that kind of impact that, you know, you don't actually have on set because you're like, okay, and roll. And oh, that was a punch, yeah, look hurt.
So they did a great job mixing and sound designing that audio, pulling from their massive library and coming up with stuff of their own, in fact, putting in their own voices where we had failed to record stuff on top of that. And we had a really good time coming in to do one ADR session with the boys.
That.
Right on. Yeah. Excellent.
That.
Hot. I'm satisfied.
It's really great. Post-production is kind of like the vacation at the end. It seems so much easier and less physically strenuous than production can be. So anything seems like a vacation after that. But on top of that, that's where a lot of the creative stuff actually happens. George Lucas likens it to painting, where you kind of continue to go back and dab at the canvas. And I'm finding more and more that that's the case, because obviously the script and the final product are never the same. And so much of that change can occur once you get started on cutting.
Yeah, hold this.
Keep that little gun of yours.
That's good. That's real good.
Good job.
Find the crate.